As I look around the room, I'd like to call this to order and make some call outs. We have, let's start with, let's see, we have Councilor Deb Pullen, we have Councilor Carol Anderson Blanks, Councilor Tiffany McGinnis, and Minority Leader Mark Zdanowicz. And as I look around, we have Rick Ledwith, our town manager, John Phillips from Public Works, and there's Bob Palmer and Catherine DeVinny. Sorry, I'm like looking all around here. And then Catherine B, who's showing up.
Catherine B is the Executive Coordinator for Public Works.
Yeah, showing up as a guest and no picture on my screen here. So,
I'm in a public place, so.
Oh, gotcha. All good, all good. Welcome, everyone. And we call this to order, as I said, and let's just go ahead and start diving in here. And I'll turn it over to Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one item under communications and just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge both our public works staff led by Mr. Phillips and our plant facility staff led by Mr. Palmer, not only for their efforts year round to keep our streets and parks clean and beautiful, but this is a time of year where we will experience snow events, much like the one we are looking at that may be hitting us Saturday evening into Sunday. Hearing about the potential of 6 or more inches of snow. Hopefully that's not the case, but in the event that it is, our team is certainly ready to take on whatever Mother Nature has in store for us this weekend. So the timing is not great because it's Saturday around midnight, and then it'll go all night Saturday into Sunday. So the timing is unfortunate, but appreciate the sacrifice that our folks will make on Saturday into Sunday to keep our streets and grounds safe and clean. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to both of them and their staffs. So I know they'll have a busy weekend coming up. With that said, I would turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, and we can hit the ground running with our facilities update with Mr. Palmer. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rick. And Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob Palmer, Director of Plant Facility Services. So daily operations, we haven't experienced any issues with our buildings. Everything's running as expected, so no major crises, which is great. As far as staffing, we're still continuing to see a little bit of turnover with part-time custodians. We continue to recruit. We're having some success in that area, which is good. We did fill one full-time building maintainer position for Elmwood Community Center. And then we also have a pending retirement of another staff person, building maintainer, coming up in early February. So we'll begin that recruitment process as well. So update on the new Elmwood Community Center / Cultural Center. So the purchase, 100 Mayflower, we purchased a few years ago. We're continuing to use that facility. Limited use of the buildings for police and emergency management and fire are using that building. There's also a temporary dog park on the site. The demolition is design is in process. We hope to be putting that out to bid sometime during the winter, anticipating a spring demolition of the existing facility there. So the design of the new facility, we've been going through the architectural process to hire somebody. So we are down to we've asked 3 firms to submit proposals after interviewing 6 of the firms that initially responded to the RFQ back in October. Those proposals are due tomorrow. The committee will meet sometime next week to review those proposals, and hopefully we'll select an architect to begin that process. So going into our capital projects, so still seeing supply chain, labor, high pricing issues within the industry. Nothing new. It seems to have settled down. It's kind of the new normal, we think. So we're continuing to proceed and to plan projects and to adjust as accordingly. But so some major projects that we're working on are animal control facility. So we have a redesign and process for the new location. We're making very good progress on that. At the same time, we're have engaged a firm to begin the demolition of the existing facility on Oakwood, 705 Oakwood Avenue. That's the former Cunningham Supply Building across from DPW. So that is in process. We're still working on our public safety facilities assessment. There's an initial draft of the facilities conditions of the firehouses and the public safety complex. And the architectural firm Tecton has been meeting with police and fire to talk about future needs, and that'll be incorporated into that report. So townwide generators, we had designed that project a while ago. We had put in for a state grant through our emergency management folks and public safety. That unfortunately was not accepted. There's a new round of grants due in early February, and we're applying for that at this point. So we have a project in the works currently under design for Town Hall to renovate all the restrooms, to make them, to bring them up to date and also to make them fully ADA compliant. We'll also be renovating the lobby to make it more efficient as our customers come into the building. There'll be a central reception desk, and it will also complement our new security procedures for the building that were implemented about 1.5 years ago. So Cornerstone Aquatic Center, we have several air handler replacements going on over there right now. We have one that's just started up. We have one in process, and we have another one in design. So that's again, those are very long lead time items, over 1 year for those items to be built and delivered to us. So it takes quite a bit of time. So on the Board of Ed side, we're working on fresh air ventilation for both Duffy and Webster Hill. The Duffy project has been bid and awarded. That will begin this spring. The Webster Hill project is designed. We've done the final review. The architect is working on putting out the bids, getting the bid set ready for our final review, and then we'll get it out to bid. We have applied for state grants for both of those projects. Those were due January 1st. So we had finished those up last week. So we'll be hopeful that we get those. King Philip, we're replacing auditorium seating. That's an ongoing in process. We're doing small sections at a time so they continue to use the auditorium for school purposes. We did complete the restroom renovations at Sedgwick. That was a multi-year project. Duffy, we're still got a few issues. We did front entrance security improvements there. We do have some long lead items that we're still waiting on, but it is up and running and functional at this point. So we're doing several playground improvements at those Woket, Duffy, Webster Hill, Smith, and Aiken. Those are all in various stages of process. Most of it's just on order. We anticipate spring and summer installations for those. We're currently working on 3 different roof replacement projects, Brayburn, Hall, and Bugby. Hall will definitely go out to bid this spring. We'll look at budgeting and see what the market looks like as far as putting out probably another one, but most likely we'll wait till next summer to do either Brayburn or Bugby, and then the summer after to do the other building. So we're working with our nutrition services people to update the kitchen serving lines at Hall, Conard, and Sedgwick over the next few years. Those are pretty extensive projects in those buildings. We're also replacing exterior doors at Hall High School for the entire building. That's been bid and awarded, and that will take place this upcoming summer. We're also looking at some restroom renovations up in Hall in the B section, if you're familiar with Hall High School, on the B section on the first and second floors of that section of the building. So we typically do flooring replacements every summer at least one of the schools. For next summer, we're looking at Whiting Lane, and that typically involves an asbestos abatement process to remove the old tile, and the mastic, which typically has asbestos in it. So And when we do projects like that, we can't have any children in the building at all. So that's why those have to take place in the summer, and then we have to kind of do a small area in order to get it done and get it back together. So for Woolkit, we're also doing a main office relocation, bringing the office forward to the front part of the building. Right now, the office, you have to go to the office, you have to walk through the main lobby, and there's really no good way to update the security for that building. So we're going to be really bringing, similar to what we did with Bugby, if you're familiar with that, we really brought the office to the front of the building. So moving it slightly, but then it also helps in that we can utilize that space where the office was located for some educational purposes. So they're having a little bit of space issue over there. So those are the projects. I'm happy to answer any questions. And back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob. I have a quick question regarding recruitment. You said you were having some success. What's working well for you?
Our HR team actually was able to get us more web presence. So they were able to get us better, it comes up and easier, better search results on Indeed and stuff like that. So they actually did a nice job with that, getting us, because we weren't getting a lot of applicants. So we sat down and talked with them and said, we really need more applicants. And actually we got 40, which was amazing. So
Awesome.
usually we get a trickle of 4 or 5, especially for part-time positions. So
yeah, Indeed.
So it definitely got us a higher response.
Indeed does have a big difference between the free version and the paid version.
Yeah, exactly.
Big difference. Are there any other questions for Bob?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Just quick question for you, Bob. With the turnover of the part-time custodians, does that have an impact on our schools in terms of the functions that they provide?
In this report, I was talking about town side, but we experienced the same side on the board side too. So it doesn't impact us, because what we do is we just backfill with overtime.
Okay.
To get the critical things done. So it doesn't. It just costs us more money. So.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
And the same thing on the town side. So we just backfill with overtime to get the proper coverage. So.
Not optimal, but.
Right, not optimal, but that is, sometimes that's the reality. So.
Yep. I don't think I see any other little yellow up, but if somebody has a question, please speak now. And we can go on to sustainability update with Catherine and Catherine.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Catherine Davini. I'm not sure I know all of you on the call that well, but I'm the energy specialist part-time for the town. I work under Bob Palmer in plant and facilities. Catherine Bruns, who just popped onto your screen. Catherine, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. Sorry, I'm in a public place, so I apologize. But yeah, I'm the recycling coordinator. I work under John Phillips at Public Works. I'm responsible for the recycling education and outreach in West Hartford, in addition to doing the exciting job of school composting, which I can talk about later. And I'm in charge of the pilot program that we've been running pretty successfully in the Morley district.
Thank you.
Yeah. So so Catherine and I tag team, we put together this little sustainability report for you guys with some of our highlights. And again, we just stick to some key bullet points. So just to run through quickly, I put together just some overview information for you. One of my big tasks at the moment is putting together the utility budget and projections for the town. So I'm happy to report that those should be flat, even potentially a minimal decrease compared to the budget for last year. If anyone's not aware, we spend about just under $2 million in utilities on the town side. Those are all the town facilities, including all the parks and pools and street lights. And then on the Board of Ed side, all the schools are just over $3 million. Just to let you know, one of the things Bob and I have been doing recently is looking at electricity supply rates. The town does electricity procurement for all of our buildings. We lump it all together. Together, those facilities use about 15 million kilowatt hours a year. Just for context, about 10 years ago, that number was closer to 21 million kilowatt hours. So we put a big dent in that number, but it's been fairly steady for the last few years. And in actual fact, we would hope to see that electricity use go up as we move away from fossil fuels in the future and electrify some of our facilities. So just to give you a brief glimpse, our electricity rate, actually good news, is going down next year, but then it will be going up. Electricity rates are not expected to return. You know, as Bob says, never say never, but electricity rates are not expected to return to kind of the 7-cent range for a while. You guys can go home and check your own electricity bills to see what you're paying, but here's what the town's paying. So we're going to see a little bit of savings next year, and then a big hit to the budget coming up in 2025 on electricity costs. But you'll see the bullet point below that, just to let you know that we do try and proactively manage these things. In the last few years, we've put together 2 virtual net metering solar contracts. If anyone's not familiar, that's kind of a newer model on solar, where the solar is actually located off-site, and we virtually net meter it. We virtually receive credits on our town utility accounts as a result of that solar generation. So we do proactively manage our electricity costs, and you can see those 2 contracts saved us over $350,000 last year. Moving on, Catherine Bruns and I are the staff liaisons for our Sustainable West Hartford Commission, a very active new commission, which has a lot going on, as I'm sure you all are aware. Just a couple of their highlights. We have 4 working groups in that committee so far. These are working groups that are open not only to commissioners, but members of the public are also part of the working groups. So we have a land care working group, which has done a bunch of fabulous educational workshops with great attendance. They are also working in collaboration with Public Works and Leisure on the new Wolcott pollinator garden that's underway over there. Our energy working group is about to kick off a residential educational campaign to encourage the installation of solar and battery storage. That's a town-sponsored program, and you'll see a lot of communication and some workshops coming out. It's a 20-week program, so it's a quick turnaround, and it's being put together through a Yale University research study and a communications marketing nonprofit called Power Smart. We've got Smart Power and Power Smart. The waste working group, and I won't get too much into this because I think John Phillips is going to talk about it later, but they are starting to kick off some educational outreach, mainly focused on the background of the Connecticut waste crisis for now. And I'll let John talk about the rest of that later. We found that a lot of residents in town are completely unaware that Connecticut is even in a waste crisis. The communications working group, this is the newest working group of the commission, has some really big ideas for ramping up education and outreach, especially in support of the unit-based pricing education. So we are trying to pull. They are plowing ahead. So they've already come up with some straw man proposals and different plans they want to work on. So we are trying to keep up internally with them, and we're going to kind of have a little get together to see how to divide and conquer some of the outreach that they want to do. Just moving down, the town actually, Bernie Pelletier, who some of you might know, he's the chairman of the Sustainable West Hartford Commission. He's a great guy, very involved and very knowledgeable in sustainability and energy. He and I are on a planning committee with CROG to kind of come up with, this is a $1 million planning group grant that CROG received to look at climate pollution reduction in different regions of the state. And we will be a party to a bigger grant application that might go in around April. They're looking at a variety of different high-level topics from solar to food waste diversion, which could be part of this grant application. Other news, Sustainable Connecticut. That's an ongoing process that I'm lead up every 3 years or so. The town is going to be pursuing gold level certification, and our application is due in August. So my next few months are going to be dedicated to that, kind of corralling different people and gathering together documentation that we need for that program. I don't know whether John's talking about this, but a bunch of us have been working with Stantec Consulting on a electric vehicle charging equipment plan, and we're in the final stages of the draft of that plan. And next steps on that would be to continue to look for funding options, kind of finalize locations, and then maybe look to putting some of that out for bid. And then Catherine talked about Norfelt School. She's in charge of our food waste diversion program in elementary schools, and she's got Norfelt. She's very excited. She's got a lot of support at Norfelt, and that school will be coming on board in the next few days. And then finally, just my last bullet, we do continue to look at solar on our own properties. I mentioned our virtual net metering projects, but we do I prefer to do solar where it's visible and local in the town. So we have solar on 14 buildings already. Our solar array on the DPW Brixton Street facility was removed for a re-roofing project, and we are now looking at putting that array back on. That project's a little bit delayed because the utility incentive program is oversubscribed. And then I just wanted, in the blue box on my summary, you guys can see it at the end. Please, Catherine and I wanted to let you know if there's any topic that's of particular interest to you, please let us know. These are just some of the highlights, but there's a lot going on in both our worlds. We're happy to include it in this report, or reach out to us. Our phone numbers are on this summary, and we would love to talk to you because it's always great to have champions of sustainability at your level. Any questions?
I have a quick question, and I think Mark has a question.
Sure.
I'll defer to Mark first and let him ask.
Thanks, Barry. Hey, Catherine, thank you for that. You had mentioned that moving away from fossil fuels to electric, and currently 57% of our electricity comes from natural gas and petroleum in Connecticut, and we're kind of fortunate here. We have 38% coming from nuclear. So moving from fossil fuels to electric, with almost 60% coming from fossil fuels, what's the return on investment on that? And then, a supply and demand right now with electricity, as demand goes up without new supply, so will prices. So how are you forecasting future pricing with the demand going up here with cars and such? In fact, the government kind of backed down on the electric cars because there's not enough supply. And then if you remember too, I'm old enough, and I would never ask you to be, but in the 70s, there was a big push for electricity, mostly in state buildings and municipal buildings. And I know that didn't really pan out over time like they thought it would, and the savings weren't really there, and kind of moved away from it. So, you know, for our town to do that, what's the long-term plan? And, you know, because we need to keep track of that. And if we're going to make a big move like that away from fossil fuels, we need to make sure it's going to be beneficial for us, not just environmentally, but cost-wise too, because, you know, we got to worry about that.
Yeah, so I didn't quite understand your high-level question, but I can talk to you about some of the electrification projects that we're doing at the building level. They're actually energy efficiency projects too. So some of the projects we're doing, installing heat pumps and this kind of systems, the efficiency of those systems are way higher than some of their natural gas counterparts. For example, I just put a heat pump in my house. My overall energy use went way down, even though my electricity use went up a little bit. So we do couple this. We also, our energy use is going to go up. You know, as we electrify these buildings too, we're also putting in air conditioning and some ventilation systems that these older buildings didn't have to begin with. So you will see our electricity use creep up for some of those things that we just didn't have before. So that's one thing. So we have a lot of free roof space in our buildings, in our parking lots locally, where we can do a lot of local generation ourselves. The solar array that we have on King Philip roof produces 90% of what that school uses. The same thing at Aiken Elementary School. So those buildings are self-sufficient in terms of electricity use.
Yeah, no,
so
I appreciate the solar.
it is.
You specifically said moving away from fossil fuels to electric, not necessarily solar or anything like, unless I was confused. I was just concerned about the moving away from fossil fuels to electric, as maybe I misunderstood you. Because solar is completely different than than electric.
Yes, we are electrifying our buildings. The technology is better. It's more energy efficient, and there's a lot of and that's, I mean, we're following a lot of the state guidelines, the grant money that's available, and the incentives that are available there for any energy efficiency. I don't think those are the projects that are being done.
Thank you.
At this point,
and Bob has some more comments too.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to ask, how many buildings do we currently have that are using natural gas or non-electrical means to heat and cool?
Oh, all of them. Yeah, we only have one electric building, which is Charter Oak, which is our most efficient building in the district by far.
So in theory, if we were to electrify them all with solar, then we would be paying more in electricity, but saving in.
Yes, but as Mark mentioned, and he's absolutely right, electrifying buildings is just moving from one energy source to the other. The solar is how you produce that electricity.
Right.
Yeah, and the Charter Oak though is got the wells in them, and we spent a tremendous amount of money up front, and the return on investment. And Bob, I know I was intimately involved in all this back in the day. Is it a 40-year return on investment on those wells?
Bob, you're on mute.
It was probably closer to a 20-year investment on those, Mark. So it wasn't, you know, and obviously we keep our buildings long term. So 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 it did make sense, and and especially on that building, we did get a very nice reimbursement from the state on that. So
Oh, yeah. I remember it was expensive going in though. I just remember.
right.
That.
Oh yeah, no, no. It certainly is expensive, and I think in overall, I mean, this process is going to take many years, decades. So we only have one electric building now. Like in really, the examples that are coming up are Webster Hill. As we go through and do that fresh air and air conditioning project, we're going to be able to eliminate, by using heat pumps and electrifying the building, we're going to be able to eliminate the steam boiler, which is by far and I think that is the most energy inefficient building we own. Correct, Catherine?
Yeah.
So we're using 120-year-old technology in that building. So and it's hard to control, it's high maintenance, and then we're gonna, we'll transition over to this more efficient system. And you're right, Mark. There is an issue with electrical supply, demand, and all that, and those are obviously market forces that are playing here, and hopefully the nation will figure that out in some type of a method. But as efficiency improves on all the stuff, and we update some of our older stuff, and why people do that in their houses and other businesses do it too, the grid, there'll be put less pressure on the demand in the grid eventually. So, and we do see that, over the last 5 years, just watching obviously in the summertime, we watch the grid and we drop power in order to avoid that high peak demand charge. But the peak is not where it was 5 years ago because of all the solar and efficiency that's been done over the years. That peak is much lower than it used to be. So it's substantially lower, and it's very noticeable. And that, I think, will continue as technology evolves and things are made more efficient. So.
Yeah, thanks too. And I remember we did all the LED lighting as well, which helped quite a bit.
Stuff like that, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's, I'm sorry, I'm not very good thinking on my feet, but, as Bob said, as we move through these projects, there are efficiency projects, there are long-term life cycle cost savings and maintenance savings that were not in these buildings as well. Some of our, Charter Oak is probably our least intensive maintenance buildings. There are a lot of inspections and things you have to do with fossil fuels you don't have to do with electric systems. And plus there are a lot of externalities with greenhouse gas emissions and things. And once you factor all those in, and again, I'm not an EPA economist, but when there are people at the federal and state and other levels looking at this stuff, making the recommendations. And I think if you look at some of the long-term life cycle benefit cost analysis of moving to electrification, a lot of people are moving in the direction.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
My one quick question, which I think will be a little easier, is the working groups. A few of them are fairly obvious to me. The land care beyond, I know that they probably do more than just plant pollinator gardens. So I want to make, I wanted a little bit more information for the folks out there on that.
So they are actually in the process of rethinking their name, and they would like to move to a nature-based solutions working group. So they're encompassing not only sustainable land care, so looking at lawns and gardens and native species and invasive species removal, those kind of things, pesticide use. They are also looking at tree canopy and other nature-based solutions.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions for Catherine and Catherine? No? Okay. Well, thank you for that report. And I think at this point we move on to John Phillips.
Yep.
And
through the chair, thank you, Barry. John Phillips, Director of Public Works. In your packets, we've uploaded a couple documents. The first one I'll speak of is our monthly report. Again, it's a back look of our activities over the past month, December. On the back half of the report just shows our performance and work performance, which is for your review later on. Certainly we can take questions on that. I'd just like to draw your attention to our notables. Our pilot program is still going on in the Moly School District. Again, we're averaging about 1.37 tons per week in food waste, which is a substantial amount of food waste diversion. So that's working well in that pilot program, and we continue to review the whole scope of the pilot review program, which I'll talk to you about in a minute on the next document that we've uploaded. Catherine Duvenis mentioned that Stantec is coming close to a near final report for our EVSE and our community electrification program for installing EVSEs in the right locations and the right size, and all the work that goes behind the scenes in having an EVSE program in a municipality. We've been busy on the MS4 side. Again, MS4 is a municipal stormwater separation program, and it's basically our responsibility to keep storm lines clean, culverts clean, catch basins, street sweeping. Previous to current forecast, obviously, we've dealt with 2 back-to-back 5-inch rainstorms over the weekends leading into the Christmas holiday. And so we've been very busy in additional street sweeping, cleaning up where some localized flooding may have occurred, and cleaning up catch basin tops that may have had debris clog their tops for potential flow for the future. We had a very, very successful post-holiday electronic and cardboard collection program where we advertise and encourage residents to bring their excess cardboard if what couldn't fit or couldn't be thrown away at the curb, or bring in that electronic waste, as the holidays usually bring a lot of new electronics into our homes, and out goes the old and in comes the new. Very successful, where we've collected 5.3 tons of electronic waste and 5 tons of cardboard. An incredible amount of volume for a 4-day collection period. Plus, we're also excited because we expose a lot of residents of our recycling center, realize all the services that we provide down there. So a lot of residents, it was new to them to tour the facility, see what the facility offers. So hopefully they go get their residential permit and make frequent trips to the recycling center and continue to do their part in reducing our MSW waste. We are working within our yard and working with Bob's staff, Bill Phibbs, on doing a fuel station design. So we're in design right now and siting it in the location of our yard. That'll just give us operational efficiency, both on cost and as well as operation-wise, where we won't have to use local fuel stations just to fill up our trucks. So it'll certainly advance us forward in our emergency management responsibilities. You might have seen in the communication that we put out today, it's a pre-storm, and I'll talk about the storm prep in a second. Our yard waste program ended in late October, the first part of November, and leaves ended December 15th. But we're still seeing residents put stuff at the curb as if we're going to come and collect it. We've had to augment and transition our contracts that help us out in that don't work in the wintertime months, because typically we're seeing average snowfalls. Typically at this time between December and now, we would have had 13 inches of snow. So the programs naturally end in the wintertime, but obviously the weather is different. We can't plan for that. So we did put some messaging out today in a pre-storm communication, but we've also been out kind of working with residents and leaving little notices that it's time to pull it back, and get it off the curb line, because that material does not belong there. And if we do have to plow, which is likely we will this weekend, it could just create other issues for us if it's there. So we do have that going on, and we'll try to make contact with them as much as we can by end of business tomorrow. Rick started the meeting off about talking about the storm. Yeah, we're fully engaged with really most of the work we've done this week. Is because of the weather we have had, we've been able to continue with some construction projects. But this short holiday week, we've been really focusing on transitioning and getting all of our snow and ice control equipment ready. And we'll be fully ready by end of business tomorrow, and just waiting for the call to come in to go to work. All of our equipment's ready. We have a lot of new drivers. They've been out learning their routes. And again, learning a route during a clean, a day like today with no snow is far different than seeing their route with snow in it. But it certainly is helpful. So they've been out doing that. We've added several new plows and additional plows. We have 5 trucks that have wing plows on it, so it gives us an extended reach when we're plowing the street. The best picture I could paint there is a typical truck has to do a street 2 to 4 passes, 2 down the center, 2 down the gutter. With the wing plow, they can cut that down to 2 passes on the right street. And so it makes it a lot more efficient. And what we hope to gain there is that the truck and the driver will be able to go through the routes multiple times and more often. And so we'll keep up on snow accumulation in a perfect situation. But all equipment, we've had plenty of salt. We're working with some liquid salt programs in a small capacity in some areas, but in general, we're still granular salt applications, and all of our equipment's ready to go and our new staff's ready to go. So there shouldn't be any worry. I would like to note though, we'll be plowing snow Sunday afternoon. The snow will probably stop midday. Everybody will be home. Everybody will be able to do their driveways and sidewalks before we can plow their street. Because of everybody being home on a Sunday afternoon, their ability to do their own properties, I'm sure we're going to frustrate a lot of homeowners on Sunday afternoon as we try to clean the streets. It's important to note we'll have to put an extra emphasis on cleaning our roads in this particular snowstorm, because the 5-day forecast has rain on Wednesday, 48 degrees and rain. And so we have a responsibility to make sure water will flow off the street come Wednesday, only 3 days after the snow ends. So we will be, our marching orders to staff will be to make sure we're cleaning streets curb to curb and catch basins are open to accept the water flow that is due to come just 3 days after the snowstorm. Again, that's just deep in the weeds and operationals, but that's really how we have to think on each and every snowstorm, not just the day of, but the days following. And again, the report gets into operational data on the backside, and you're welcome to review that or ask any questions. In a second communication that we uploaded in your packets, it's the communication and correspondence we had with DEP per one of our requirements with the grant program we're in now. And as we continue to deliberate and go through our due diligence and looking at the options to focus on, town priorities, town goals when it comes to waste management, we're asking for a bridge funding to continue the current pilot program while we continue to go through the deliberation. And in that request, we kind of timelined what we want to do over the next several months as we deliberate and discuss openly about the options that we could present to the town of West Hartford for waste management moving forward, a generational change, if you would. And so that's what this correspondence represents. It doesn't represent that we're definitely going to be doing something or going into a unit-based pricing program. It really just represents that we want to continue our due diligence and exploring the options, have a better understanding of what a unit-based pricing program means for the town of West Hartford. I'm currently writing a business plan for this committee's review. I hope to have that ready for February 1st. That'll give you a really in-depth, detailed understanding of what a unit-based pricing program town-wide would mean and how it would function and operate. Again, give you an opportunity to ask questions on that. It does go into requesting some pilot money to extend it and have an additional pilot program after we deliberate and decide to do something. This was a requirement of the grant, because if there is going to be an additional grant or a larger grant, if you would, we needed to put that request in now so the DEEP can do their work administratively to design and either accept or deny the grant request to move forward. So again, it's just preliminary to really start the process of dialogue. And we actually have a meeting on this correspondence with DEP tomorrow, 11 o'clock in the morning, to discuss some of the details of this correspondence. Again, that's our report. I tried to condense it a little bit because we're running short on time, but I will certainly take any questions from anybody that's on the meeting tonight.
Thank you, John. Just a quick question there. In addition, I know that worst case scenario, we get the higher end of snow, on Saturday, Sunday, which I've heard could be up towards a foot, but and then followed by a few days later, a couple inches of rain from what I saw the forecast. So what can people do? I know that our public relations folks were on social media earlier today, putting out what folks could do, but from your mouth, what are things, we already said that we could make sure that we're keeping things clear, but if they see a storm drain or something that's covered by snow or something, would you advise help with that? Or
nope, that's a great advice, and I appreciate that opportunity to yeah. So right now, we sit in a very fortunate situation where we have no accumulating snow on the ground. So 12 inches of snow though sounds like a lot, it's certainly impactful for a 24-hour period. Because there's no snow base, it's just 12 inches on top of nothing. But it will still be impactful for the days following the storm. First and foremost, we just request, because everybody will be home. I know everybody. I'm a homeowner myself. My wife will be home. The anxiety to go out and do your driveway and do your sidewalk. We as public works operators, we understand that. We just ask for patience. You know, don't be so aggressive to get everything cleaned up and nice and tight of your own property, and then we have to come through and clean the road. Use some common sense observation. If the road looks a little narrow, you have to assume we have to come back and make the road wider. If you can't see the curbs, you can't see your neighbor's curb, you can't see your curb, that means we have to come back and open the road to the curb lines. So again, you want to exercise a little patience on how detailed you want to get on your own property before we finish the road. Once the road is complete, I'm sorry about my dog. Once the road is completed, and you're confident the road's completed and we're done, and you detail your road, helping us out with catch basins is certainly advisable, because that will help water flow. Temperatures of the storm are going to be right around freezing, if not maybe slightly above, so melt will happen immediately. And so you'll want that water to flow off your property into a catch basin. If you have storm drains on your house and you have the downspouts that extend away, you'll want to open those up so that the snow that melts off your roof can shed away from your foundations. Again, that's just simple things you can do just around your own property. Weather is not going to be very cold after the storm. Obviously, even with the rain coming, we're still a very walkable community. And just what we've learned over this last year with Vision Zero, assuring that your sidewalk is clear so residents can walk on the sidewalk and not walk in the street immediately after a storm. But even prior to Vision Zero, the focus of Vision Zero, West Hartford is a walkable town no matter what the situation of the season. We have a lot of people that choose to walk in town for exercise or just recreation. So clearing their sidewalks obviously is very important so that our residents can use the sidewalk infrastructure. Those are just the quick and basic areas. If you have a fire hydrant in front of your home, certainly clearing that is helpful. 3 feet around is the best way to do it. You can help out your waste and recycling collections by carving out a spot for your cans to sit level so they're not tipped over, because that makes it easier for the arm to grab, and then makes it easier for the automated arm to set the barrel back down again and reduce the risk of tip overs and fallovers. So those are the biggest things. And like I mentioned already about in-depth in the communication, if you have your Christmas tree out and it was not collected out, we are on schedule. So if you made your collection day, and we are collecting during the day on Saturday because of the holiday, Saturday is a collection day. If you put the tree out and you missed your collection day, please pull it back in and then put it again out next week, Monday, Tuesday, whatever your collection day is. Get that off the road, because if a tree gets buried in the snow and stays buried in the snow, we won't be collecting it. We just can't collect. We don't go out with shovels and aren't going to spend the time to dig out trees that are left at the curb line. And those who are still putting their yard waste at the curb, whether it be a brown bag or bundled up sticks, that program ended on the 15th of December, and the yard waste ended in late October. So again, there's no truck coming to pick up that material. So we ask that be brought in, and you have options there. You can hold on to it till April when the program starts again, or our recycling center takes yard waste for free once you have a residential permit to use a facility. So I hope that answers your question, Barry, to little tips for homeowners to help out.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I know Tiffany is ready to go out there and put cones on her street when it floods. So. All right, great. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for John? Hearing none. Rick, do you have anything to add?
I do not. Thank you, everyone, for their attention. Just and a big thanks to John for his leadership and tackling the waste crisis that we are all facing as a state. He had the vision 10 years ago to begin this conversation, and we are where we are today. But we're heading in the right direction. This memo to DEEP is a good start to continue that dialogue with them to bridge the grant that we received and look to do something townwide. So a lot more to follow. So this is just really the beginning. And you heard a lot last month as well from the Sustainable West Hartford Commission. So, but in terms of meeting agenda items, that would be it, Mr. Chairman. But again, appreciate everyone's attendance and participation tonight.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Rick. And if we have no other questions or comments, I think we can go ahead and adjourn. Get a couple minutes back to ourselves. All right. All right,
All right,
great.
thank you, Barry.
Everybody.
All right.
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Have a great night.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night.